Hey, Amber.
Hi.
What are you doing here?
Just visiting you and
What a coincidence. All right. You ready to do a little daily tech news show?
all set.
All right. Let's do it.
Support for the Daily Tech News Show is provided by Patreons like you at patreon.com/acedetect. This is FPN, the Frog Pants Network.
This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, December 15th, 2014. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, very happy to have Amber Mack back on the show. She is an author, she's an entrepreneur, and a host of a new show on Instagram, 15 Second Tech. How's it going, Amber?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back.
Thank you. 15 Sec Tech, I should say. 'Cause you don't have
Yes.
time to say second. You got to
don't.
save those. Save those.
When you have 15 seconds, you don't have time for much. That's what I'm learning. And it sounds like a really simple idea, but in fact, it's sometimes harder to condense the content you want to talk about into a shorter format. So we really have to write our scripts pretty tightly, and it's been a fun experiment.
Cool. Well, we're going to give you the luxury of lots more than 15 seconds. So I hope we don't throw you off.
It's all good.
Let's start with some headlines here. GigaOM reports Microsoft began rolling out Skype Translator to selected users today. The feature allows instant translation of voice conversations between English and Spanish speakers, as well as translation of text conversation between speakers of around 12 languages. The first version runs on Windows 8.1 and Windows Phone. If you're interested in signing up, go on over to skype.com/translator-preview and register. They're inviting people in slowly, and I want to be one of them.
I do too. I think this is really cool. When I read this headline, I thought, we always talk about the potential of technology bringing us into a global environment, and I think this is one of those things that really makes that true.
It's a really cool combination of Microsoft's cloud-based technology, big data technology. They're doing machine translation, and a product that they acquired a few years back, Skype. It's not quite the universal translator, though. Like, someone says something and you kind of have to wait for it to do the translation, and then you hear it again. So it's similar to the idea of having a translator in your ear, if you've ever had that, or an interpreter with you.
Yeah, I think it's going to change the dating game too.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
I know. I'm just thinking that's one scenario where people think, well, maybe you're doing long distance dating and there's a bit of a translation issue. This could change things.
I thought the universal language was love, though. Like,
you can't hug through Skype, Tom.
That's
you just
true.
can't.
You can't. Politico rounds up the news around the Sony hacks from the weekend, and there were a few stories. Attackers offered to exempt Sony staffers from future leaks by emailing their name and business title. Sony Pictures Entertainment hired attorney David Boyce to send a request to news organizations to not report on damaging information obtained from the stolen files. The letter said Sony would seek action for damages incurred as a result of any such reporting. Basically, almost 100% of the news outlets have said, tough luck, Sony. We're not going to report people's social security numbers. We know there's a line, but this information is now public, and it is in the public interest not only to know some of this information, but also to know the importance of securing against this sort of leak in the future.
Yeah, it really surprises me. I've read some of the emails, what people actually, especially executives, will write within an email, because I think, being a little tech savvy, I'm always more conscious of what I'm putting out there. I'm always very careful. I think this is probably going to do wonders for Mark Cuban's app Cyberdust, that allows you to have private conversations that disappear and aren't saved anywhere. I think more and more of those tools are going to be useful to people, especially in business.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's not that I want things like this to happen. It's that when they happen, the good thing that can come out of them is learning the importance of being careful with the tools you use.
Yeah, you got to be careful. No one's safe anymore.
GigaOM reports Spanish newspapers are upset at Google's decision to close Google News in Spain and remove Spanish publishers from Google News products worldwide. The Spanish Association of Daily Newspaper Publishers noted that the closure would have a negative impact on citizens and businesses, and called for, quote, the intervention of the Spanish and EU authorities and of competition authorities to effectively protect the rights of citizens and businesses. If you missed this last week, Google News in Spain will close tomorrow, Tuesday, December 16th, because of a new law that requires publishers to pay Google if they list products in Google News. Google says, we don't sell ads on Google News. We don't plan to sell ads on Google News. So we're just not doing Google News anymore. Amber, now they're saying, well, no, you have to pay for the news and you have to publish it.
It's so interesting just to see this actually take place right now, right? I mean, it's I don't know what's going to happen with this one, but it seems like a lot of people are upset. I was reading some of the feedback online. A lot of people up in arms about this and disappointed that it's going to take place. But I don't know if you can fight against Google. I mean, can you ever win in that scenario?
Well, yeah. I mean, they won in getting the law passed, so they won a small victory, but they lost in getting Google to remove the news. Now they're trying to force Google to put Google News up. I don't know if you can force someone to continue a business just so that you can charge them for continuing that business.
But I think this also goes back to how people feel about the internet and information in general. Sometimes we feel as we have too much ownership over what's being put out there and stuff that we've been getting for free. And it just, I can understand, this may not be a happy ending for people who wanted this service to be there.
No, absolutely. In fact, on Current Geek on Friday, I was putting forth the idea that I think they should, the Spanish publishers should start their own Google News competitor. I mean, they've got all the stories. They've got all the rights to it.
What a great opportunity for them.
Make like a tech meme version of Spanish news.
It can't be that difficult to do. I mean, I know Google's amazing, but at the end of the day, it can't be that hard to replicate a service like that. I'm
sure the tech meme folks are like, oh, it's a lot harder than you think. But yeah, I mean, it's not impossible to do is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it's not. It's doable, I think, and maybe an opportunity, like you said.
VentureBeat reports that it is now possible to control your Nest thermostat with their self-titled Google app on iOS and Android phones. This is not some special other app. It's the regular old Google app, usually used for search. You can also use voice commands to ask Google to change or set the temperature, and the app will bring up Google Now to suggest temperatures. So you can talk to your Nest.
You know what? I could see myself doing this, just sitting at home and talking and turning the temperature up and down, just for the cool factor of it all.
Yeah. Nest, 68 degrees. And a couple, a few minutes later, 69, no, 70, keep going.
Pretty much. Just a little experiment for people, especially who have too much time on their hands, perhaps.
The BBC reports that torrent tracker search site IsoHunt has cloned the Pirate Bay database. Many people have done this, but they're a big torrent search site, so it's kind of cool that they are doing it, and they launched a site called the Pirate Bay Search by IsoHunt. Meanwhile, I'm going to call him 1312, but he writes that number in binary, spoke with Torrent Freak, saying that the Pirate Bay crew was not surprised by the raid that shut down the site, and they're taking their time offline to discuss, well, probably online discussions, but, taking their time while the site is offline to discuss the future and purpose of the Pirate Bay. If they do reboot, which doesn't sound like it's a foregone conclusion, they promise to do it, quote, with a bang. And they said, yeah, we don't mind if people clone the old site as long as they aren't scams.
As long as they're legitimate pirates.
Yeah. As long as they're not stealing money. And
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. We'll see what happens with that one.
Reuters reports BT has entered exclusive talks with Orange and Deutsche Telekom to acquire the EE mobile service. The potential deal would be worth £12.5 billion. Deutsche Telekom would keep a 12% stake in EE, and Orange would get more cash, but only a 4% stake in that deal. Talks are expected to take a couple weeks, and I personally am hoping that the resulting service that comes out of a merged EE and BT will be called Beat.
They can't be Orange anymore then, right?
Well, it wasn't Orange, because when Orange and Deutsche Telekom merged O2 and T-Mobile, they called it EE. So now that it's going to be EE and BT.
But was the color, was it orange? I'm thinking more about the branding, because if it's Beat, it's got to be red. I'm taking this
right. No, maybe they could use the old T-Mobile pink, which is slightly Beat colored. EE is like an aqua and yellow.
Okay.
Right now.
They got to switch it up.
Yeah, this is much more important than how much stock people get. Trust me.
Of course.
Recode reports Xiaomi reported 347.5 million yuan in net profit last year. That's around $56 million US, according to a regulatory filing for an operating margin profit of just 1.8%. That is razor thin. That's Amazon thin. As a comparison, Samsung reported an operating margin of 18.7% last year, and Apple 28.7% in its last fiscal year. But Xiaomi still ahead of LG, which reported 0.5%.
It's not so good.
And part of the reason Xiaomi is at least doing well in sales. TechCrunch reports on Gartner's latest worldwide smartphone sales numbers. Samsung tops the list still, but they're declining. Their market share has declined to 24.4%. Apple nudged up a bit from 12.1% last year to 12.7% in Q3. Huawei, Xiaomi, and Lenovo rounded out the top five, with Xiaomi leaping from 1.5% a year ago to 5.2% now. The other two had around 5%. So let's see. Two incumbents that are still big, and one's even growing a little, while upstarts chomp at their heels. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about 2009, when Nokia and RIM dominated, and Apple, HTC, and Samsung were the rising stars.
RIM's going to have a comeback, Tom. Didn't you know?
One could only hope.
It's going to happen, I'm telling you.
They're going to
Slow and
rename
steady.
it RIM. Yeah.
Little steps.
Well, if you look at this analog, Samsung very much playing the part of Nokia right now, scarily so. Apple is doing better than RIM was doing at this point in the previous scenario, but it makes you wonder. Apple and Samsung was at the bottom of the chart 5 years ago, and now they're at the top. Which one of these, Huawei, Xiaomi, or Lenovo, could end up being the number one 5 years from now?
Yeah, you just don't know, right? I mean, it changes so quickly.
And which one will be the HTC? The Atlantic reports that Astrobotics Technology is offering a chance for Earthlings to send their precious keepsakes to the moon via snail mail, except not snails, rockets. So it's rocket mail, but not Rocket Mail, the online service. Anyway, the program is called Moon Mail, and it is part of a plan to put a privately owned lunar rover on the moon. This would do two things. One, they would win the $20 million Google Lunar X Prize. And two, put your stuff there. If your keepsake is smaller than a dime, it will cost you $460. If it's smaller than a 25-cent piece, $1,600. More than 2 pounds worth? That's more than $1 million. You can't also put up weapons, liquids, or perishable items.
That's good.
Yeah. Although the perishable items, I'm like, oh, they'll get frozen on the way, and then they'd stay frozen on the moon. But I guess it's while they're being stored before takeoff. If you're interested, check out moonmail.co.
This is an interesting story, and I think a lot of people will want to do this, right? I mean, it sounds like a strange thing, but I can imagine people will flock to be able to send something to the moon if there is the opportunity. And, it's relatively, I guess, inexpensive if you send something that's really tiny. I don't know what that would be, but something.
I'm trying to think of something the size of a 10-cent piece that I would spend $460 to send to the moon. Because you're absolutely right. I want to send something to the moon. This is awesome. Totally want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the article that I read on Yahoo Tech, they talked about sending up cufflinks. I don't know why they grabbed that in the headline out of anything else, but I guess it's the size.
Yeah, right. So it's a little, it'd be less than $1,600.
But what's the significance of, I mean, I don't know.
Send your grandfather's cufflinks to the moon.
I don't know.
To preserve them forever.
I'm sure people are going to be much more creative than we're thinking right now, because it's going to happen. It's going to be, people will have some fun with it, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Time for some news from you. These are stories particularly submitted on our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you haven't gone in there and voted, don't complain if we don't cover a story you wanted to hear, because that's part of what we do when we figure out the lineup every day, is look at what's getting the votes over there. Star Fury Zeta sent us the TechCrunch report that Runtastic has developed software for Oculus Rift VR headsets that lets you do a 7-minute real workout, like, exercising, working up a sweat, but in a virtual environment. You could exercise in a villa by the beach on a scenic hillside, and it's all tracked by Runtastic. The software will be on display at CES, so get ready for lots of video reporters exercising. And this means we are now one 7-minute workout closer to the world of Ernie Klein's Ready Player One.
This is so interesting. I mean, it's one of these things, I think, with exercise. Sometimes I think we think technology is going to be the answer to get us all more fit and live healthier lifestyles. But sometimes I think it can be a bit of a barrier, because by the time you set things up or you have your gadgets and technology on you, I mean, it takes away from the time you could actually just be exercising. So I don't know. I don't know about this one.
Also, okay, yes, for sure. I can see the Oculus Rift being very useful with your treadmill or your elliptical machine or something like that. But it's going to have to be more than 7 minutes.
Yeah, it would have to be more than 7 minutes, right? That's just not enough time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Uber, if you're listening, got to have a little talk. You've had a tough month. One of your execs maybe threatened a reporter. Then you got sued by several cities for maybe misleading the public. So you're looking for ways to prove that you're not the company. We're all maybe starting to wonder if you are. So maybe when there's a hostage crisis in downtown Sydney and people are looking to get out of town, don't tweet, and I quote, "We are all concerned with events in CBD. Fares have increased to encourage more drivers to come online and pick up passengers in the area." After Mashable and others published a story of price hikes at 4 times the normal rate, resulting in rides that cost $100 or more, Uber did reverse course and announced that all rides in the area would be free, and they offered refunds to those charged the higher amount. Thanks to Lagerdalich for flagging this story.
This is just shocking. I mean, I was watching this unfold on Twitter last night and starting to see the headlines about Uber. And I mean, I just had the same reaction many people would have had, which is just disbelief based on recent events and how there have been so many mishaps in the news with Uber already, that they would be this insensitive to take this route. I mean, the ride should have been free in the first place. Wouldn't that have shown some goodwill from Uber as a company?
Yeah, it really shows the tone deafness to intentionally say on the post, we are concerned with the events in the Central Business District, so we've increased fares. Like, you're just not thinking this through. I get that the impulse is, in Uber's way of doing things, the way you get more drivers to somewhere is to increase the fares. That's what surge pricing is, right? It helps increase capacity. It's one of Uber's benefits over the old model of taxis. But this is a different situation. This is a tragic event, and people. My first reaction when I saw this tweet, and I saw it come across last night in somebody's retweet, was like, "Oh, they're going to do something. Oh no, they're not. That's bad."
Yeah, I know. I had exactly the same reaction. And obviously we weren't the only ones, because there was a huge amount of backlash towards them on Twitter, just hearing the news of what they had decided to do. And of course, then they have to backpedal. I mean, it amazes me on a daily basis that some of these companies don't get how insensitive they are during times like these where there are crises like this. And here's just another example that will go up on the biggest mistakes that brands have made in social media. And it's, there's many of them.
Yeah, I guess it's good for your year-end story writers.
Yes.
iSting pointed this one out, and I believe it caught your eye too, as well, Amber. IndieGoGo is setting up a new site called IndieGoGo Life, designed to help individuals raise money for things like medical bills, school, other personal causes. It's a special program that does not charge the normal platform fees. An IndieGoGo spokesperson told Engadget that the company will have a stringent verification procedure for Life campaigns that includes a dedicated team of experts, automated algorithms, and other procedures to vet all of the people that use this.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. I mean, I do see the potential that there could be people on there who are trying to scam other people. And even though that IndieGoGo has said that they are going to vet people, I just think, when it gets into situations like this, it could be problematic. But hopefully they'll figure out a way to solve some of those issues.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I also see the other side of it, though, because I've been around or involved in a couple of cases, people who I knew personally were in a real situation, and they were trying to get PayPal donations, and it was really hard to convince other people, like, no, it's a real cause. I haven't been hoodwinked. I know this person. So this is the kind of thing that can maybe add a little stamp of legitimacy and actually make these sorts of things safer to donate to. Obviously, you can just count on one of these things getting through that's not real. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. But I guess they are lucky in the sense that IndieGoGo is a trusted brand already. So I suppose if someone is going to do it, it does make sense for them to do it versus a competitor who's just coming into the market where there may be less trust.
Yeah. And that is a look at the headlines. All right. University of British Columbia put out a study. Some researchers there put out a study on how email checking affects well-being. They got 124 adults to agree to split up how they checked email for 2 weeks. They randomized whether it was the first or the second week, depending on the person being studied. But for 1 week, they limited their email checks to 3 times a day. And by the way, in the study, it says they ended up checking it in a mean average of 4.7 times. Like, people couldn't even bring it down to 3. And then the other week, whether it was the first or the second, they were allowed to check as much as possible. And the average there was something around 12. They found that self-reported outside of the study, average person checked email 15.48 times a day. The big thing that they found here, though, was that less frequent email checks reduced daily stress. and reduced stress is a great predictor of whether you have a greater feeling of well-being. So they're basically saying, look, restrict the number of times a day you check email. You'll be happier.
You know, this is interesting. I just watched 60 Minutes last night. I don't know if you saw it with Anderson Cooper, who did.
No, I missed that one.
He did a great story about being mindful, and that included disconnecting from your gadgets and technology and not having to check your email all the time. So I think this is kind of fitting that this or this study just came out. But I think it is very difficult for people to check their email 3 times a day. That would be more stressful for me. I mean, it would take some time, I think, to get over the feeling that I was missing something and I would feel behind. So I don't know. I mean, obviously they know something I don't know, but I'm not sure it would work in my schedule.
Well, it takes a social expectation, right? If you're only checking 3 times a day, the thing that is going to worry you, and they said in this study that it did worry people, but they were still happier, even though they were worried about it. But the worry was that other people would think they were ignoring them, right? Or they would be falling behind by not responding to emails in a timely fashion. But we really need to change. I think we need to change the social expectation that when you send an email, you're going to get an instant response. Email is here's a thing that you can respond to, within a day at least, in lots of cases, or maybe a little longer. But when you want someone to respond instantly, you should be using a different form of communication, whether it's a phone call or an instant message or a text or something like that, I think.
Yeah, or stop writing such long emails. I mean, I tend to reply to the emails that are shorter first, just because I know there's maybe a question in the email, but it's an easy response to type something away quickly. But I think it's an issue for everyone. I mean, our inboxes are overflowing. I mean, how do you find the time to be able to manage that and get work done? I mean, I could spend, as I'm sure you could, half my day just answering emails, but I still have to do work, like paid work. So it's a bit of a problem, I think.
Yeah, you've got to change the expectation, but I would say, like, maybe saying to someone, like, only check your email 3 times a day is going to be a recipe for them having your reaction, which is like, there's no way I'm going to do that. But maybe the positive we can take out of this story is if you reduce the number of times you're checking that email inbox, it's going to help you out. It's going to lower your stress. So don't feel like, oh, I got to check it, every second. I have a friend who has a chime go off on his phone every time he gets an email. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that would drive me nuts.
That's like, if you remember the old school Blackberries, and I remember having one and it would vibrate every time I got an email. Within 2 days, I turned that off, and you still had the phantom vibrate. You felt like you kept getting emails all the time. I mean, it can really do weird things to your psyche. So I think the notifications is a bad idea. But I think at the end of the day, this is less about how often you check your email and more about the issue that people, I think, don't know how to write emails where it makes it easier for the recipient to actually send a response. So I think we can all do a better job there.
I also want to point out that in the study, they say participants only qualified to be studied if they had some flexibility in how often they could check their email and were interested in experimenting with the way they manage their emails. So you could, I understand why they did that. If somebody's like, my boss expects me to check my email once an hour, then they can't be part of this study. But I wonder if having that kind of expectation, if you then just went ahead and said, no, I'm only checking it 3 times a day, would you still feel reduced stress? Or if you're in a business or a job that requires more often, would that balance out? Because the stress of not fulfilling the expectation of your job would take away the benefit of not being distracted all the time.
Yeah, I think one way on Twitter people deal with this in a smart way is that they have Twitter hours posted on their social media accounts. And I know you can't really do that for email, but I don't mind the idea that there are windows maybe when you're going to answer those emails. So it's not 3 times a day, but a window, like I check my email in the morning and again before I go to bed. So don't expect that you're going to get an answer right away. I mean, that may be helpful as well.
I don't do it on purpose. I've never even said it before, but I kind of stopped checking email around 11 a.m., and then don't check it again until after the show because I'm doing prep for the show. So it's reducing my stress, except I have the stress of the show then. But yeah, I could formalize that and say, hey, folks, I'm not going to be responding to email from this time to this time.
Yeah, just so people know there are those windows, right? I mean, and if you don't do that, I think, we try to compartmentalize everything that we're doing these days, and it's the only way you're going to get work done if you do turn it off for a certain amount of time.
Yeah. In any case, I think that it's a really good thing to start thinking about is how often you're interrupting yourself. Because that was the main thing they found is it's that being interrupted and having to start a task over again that builds up that stress over time.
Makes sense.
Speaking of social networks, very bad thing that happened in Sydney, and we're not a general news podcast, so we're not going to cover those events here. But the reaction to the events of the gunman who took hostages there on the social networks was good. TechCrunch had a great summary of a couple of good things here. Jason Maggs had a post on Facebook that has gone viral. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he basically talked about his observations of the reaction to the country, which was not fear, but support for each other. He said, "We are a nation of mates." And if you don't know, that's friends. "We are a nation of mates who will never be broken by the actions of a cowardice few. What I realized on the way home today was that in your attempt to scare our nation, you have galvanized our mateship. You failed." And I think a lot of people took a lot of hope and inspiration out of that, and it's why it's being passed around. And then Rachel Jacobs on Facebook posted about being next to a woman on the train who was removing her hijab, her headscarf, and she said, "I assume she's Muslim, so I ran after her at the train station and I said, 'Put it back on, I'll walk with you.'" She said the woman started to cry, hugged me for about a minute, then walked off alone. But it kicked off the hashtag "I'll ride with you" of Australians saying, "Hey, if you see someone who might be in a little fearing backlash right now, give them some support, help them out."
Yeah, I read about both of these stories, and it's just unfortunate that it has to take a tragic event like this for some of this kindness to come to light and be put in the spotlight on social media. But I think you're exactly right. They were definitely some compelling stories that came out of that tragedy. At the same time, I'll also say I was following along with what was happening. I tried to tune into CNN. They had some dinosaur documentary on for 2 hours. They weren't even covering the tragedy. I could get very little information, and there was a lot of confusion on social as well. So sometimes it does things well, sometimes not so well, and I think it was a mix in terms of this specific tragedy from Sydney.
Yeah, I just liked to give a little tip of the hat to a couple of very good reactions, because I think the knee-jerk reaction is to think, oh, well, social networks always make things worse, and sometimes they do. There's no debating that, but sometimes they don't. You know why? Because there are humans on there, and humans sometimes make things worse, and sometimes they don't.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the calendar. CNET reports that T-Mobile's Uncarrier 8.0 event is tomorrow, Tuesday, December 16th at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, when the company will share how we continue to rewrite the rules of wireless. Uncarrier 8.0. Is he just going to keep going? Uncarrier 75?
Average consumer who's already understanding the enhancements in technology and models and versions.
The Google Earth API is going to be retired in a year from now. They announced this on Friday, December 12th, 2015. Both Chrome and Firefox are removing support for the Netscape plugin application programming interface, which, because it's Netscape application programming interface, you can pretty much guess why. Security reasons is the biggest thing. And Google Earth's browser API is written into that, so rather than update it or writing a new one, they're just retiring it because usage. They say nobody uses Google Earth in a browser anymore. Everybody uses Maps. So end of a Web 2.0 pioneer. Yeah. Our pick of the day comes from Norm, who says, "I feel like I'm overloading your inbox." No, you're not, Norm. It's great to hear from you. "I'm doing a gift exchange with my California in-laws, and we're using Elfster.com, ELFSTER, to coordinate that. People sign up, set up a wish list, and the random drawing assigns folks to each other. The admin can make it so certain people don't get each other, like married members of the family don't get each other, for example. So it's pretty convenient. We've been using it for a few years, and it's working fine. Though the website leaves a bit to be desired, it gets the job done."
That's cool. I've never heard of that service, but I can imagine it would be pretty handy for the holidays.
Yeah, I like that too. Especially if you're doing a gift exchange, having a little smart data behind it. So they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're not going to give the husband and wife each other. They'll already be getting each other presents. Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Folks, we got lots of good ones, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Allison Sheridan wrote in with a message of the day, and she did a little research for us regarding Google's new reCAPTCHA, the one that's supporting things like mouse movements to determine whether or not you're a robot. Allison was on the show. We talked about it, and she said, "I wondered aloud whether it would work well with screen readers like VoiceOver on the Mac, since the mouse doesn't really move normally under those conditions. I've conducted a highly scientific study by asking my 20 or so blind friends to test one of the new CAPTCHAs on a blog site using VoiceOver. I've gotten half a dozen responses so far, and all reports on the Mac using VoiceOver reported that it correctly accepted the I am not a robot checkbox from them. One user reported having a problem with their iOS device and VoiceOver, but others reported that it did work for them. Now, she says this isn't a sample size worthy of real science, but the fact that it accepted so many of them as non-robots suggests that using a screen reader doesn't hurt their chances of being forced to do traditional CAPTCHAs.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like she says, that's still only a dozen responses, but at least it's not a major problem, right? If those dozen didn't have it. And then Corey wrote it in and said wanted to chime in on the issue that was mentioned Friday about companies using agile methods like Scrum to release software faster, and the person called it shipped with more bugs. He says, as a product owner and previous QA manager for several applications in large financial companies, the quality aspect should be a given in this SDLC. Agile flips the traditional iron triangle of software development and locks quality in. It's really only the scope that is supposed to be variable. If a company is not releasing quality, they really aren't agile. They're just releasing crap as quick as they can. The absence of a feature isn't necessarily a bug. To the point, it's something that could be in the next iteration or next release in a few weeks, hopefully. Thank you, Corey. That's a good qualification to say, A, don't use agile development as your excuse if you're shipping buggy software. And B, if you've got something that comes out and they're like, it's going to do this soon, but it doesn't do it yet, that's not necessarily a broken product.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. That's a good explanation of things.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Appreciate that. And Amber, thank you. This was really fun, as always. Really appreciate having you on.
Of course. Thanks so much. It always flies by. I can't believe, even though I do a show in 15 seconds now, I have to say this felt like 15 seconds.
Everything feels like 15 seconds now. Twitter.com/AmberMac. Follow her right now if you don't already, AMBERMAC. And then in Instagram.com/15SecTech with the numbers 15, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. To save space, right?
And ambermac.com. Anything else going on you want to let folks know about?
Not much. I mean, pretty much everything I do you can find at twitter.com/AmberMac. I was shooting a show for AOL in the summertime called Tech Download. That's available online, but it will be in flight on Delta starting in the new year. So if anyone sees it in flight, because I don't fly Delta all that much, although I should, please let me know. Snap a little picture so I can see that it's really there up in the air.
Yeah, sometimes I fly Delta when I go to Atlanta or Salt Lake City.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'll keep an eye out if
let me know
next time I fly. Thanks to all of our patrons who support the show, 4,616 of you finding value in the show and giving a little value back. We super appreciate it. And you should know that if you're not a patron, it's easy to become one, patreon.com/acedetect. Or if you can't afford to commit to a regular monthly support, there's lots of other ways to support the show, including a store that has mugs and t-shirts and art by our producer, Jenny Josephson. Limited edition is in there. Go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support for all of those ways. Don't forget, you can support us by going to the subreddit, too, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. You can email us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Give us a call, 512-59-DAILY, and listen to the show live, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday at alphageekradio.com. Our website is dailytechnewsshow.com, and Patrick Beja joins us tomorrow. Talk to you then.
This podcast is part of the Frog Pants Studios Network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Great show, guys.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you, Amber.
Yeah, no, thanks so much again for having me back. Like I said, it really does fly by.
It really does, doesn't it?
I talk really quickly, but a lot of people that I'm on air with don't talk as quickly, so I feel like the pace is good for me.
Oh, good. Yeah, I talk really fast, too, so it's a good pace.
Perfect. All right, guys, thanks so much. And Tom, I guess I'll see you in a couple hours.
Oh, yeah, I'll see you on Cord Killers. I forgot I should have mentioned that on the show, but yeah. Hey, everybody watching live. Amber's going to be on Cord Killers in a couple hours.
All right, guys, thanks. That was fun.
Take care.
Bye. Okay, bye.
I think Beatmaster may have the best title of all time.
Oh, yeah?
I just voted it up.
Loading. It's loading slow for me.
I'll tell you, it's 0 days since the last.
I saw it right as you started to say it.
It was great
With the brackets.
with the brackets. Like it's just so perfect.
You can't hug through Skype. Is pretty good
It's
too.
fantastic as well, and I actually really like Hola Skype Adios Google because it combines two stories.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good one. They're a lot strong.
You know, and that's one of those things where I normally don't like it when people do it, but that one actually works nicely.
Totally is. It
well
actually
blended.
Is exactly true. That's also a Beatmaster one. Way to go, Beatmaster!
Beatmaster's he's on today.
On.
fire.
Exercise. Now 70%.
Actually,
more virtual.
leveraging Big Santa is pretty good too.
I missed. What is that? I missed that one. I didn't hear that.
It was the Elfster, the gift giving.
Oh, Elster. Yeah,
I didn't actually say that. I wish I would have said that.
that's great.
Because I said leveraging big
Santa.
data, and so he turned it into leveraging Big Santa.
Nice.
Uh,
People must have already used Xiaomi the money like 800 times, right? Which is why
I feel
it's
like I've
Xiaomi
used
the
that
profit.
before.
Yeah.
If not, it maybe just said it, but
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Those are my favorites, the ones that are up at the
Show
top.
me the money.
But 0 days since. Oh, can you do brackets in a
Yeah,
title?
yeah, we can do brackets. That's not a problem. It's just long. Would be the only thing against it.
I know.
Let's see. Nah, I think that works. You can't hug through Skype. All right. Yeah, that works. If it fits in my metadata field without wrapping, that's usually my thing, and it just does.
What do you have against wrapping metadata?
Well, it's not me. It's not me, Jenny. See, it's the people. People don't like it. And then they go on Twitter and they're like, your title's rap and I can't tell what the title is. And they all speak like Thurston Howell when they say it. So,
Well, your metadata should really be only one line.
Lovey, your metadata is way too long.
I needed some Thurston Howell the third in my life.
I'm going to change the nerd voice to be Thurston Howell.
Yeah.
You know, because
Well,
the nerd
'cause
voice
you know
makes
what?
it sound like
is.
he's kind of a jerk. But if you just nudge it a tiny bit, now he's like wealthy, sophisticate.
Yeah. No, what it is the people who know a lot of things, and if they can't deliver it in a certain kind of way, that it sounds like that.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah. I know things about things, and I'm going to tell you things about things in this tone, and you're going to hate it.
lovey.
Sorry. It's so awesome. Yeah, I think that's my favorite title. Although, definitely props to You Can't Hug Through Skype.
I know. I'm still like kind of tempted to name it that.
I think.
I mean, the thing that's starting to sway me back towards changing it
Yeah.
to that is that's a more positive than picking on. Not that Uber might not
Yeah.
deserve it.
You Can't Hug Through Skype. Yeah, it's more consistent with the tone of our show.
Yeah, with this episode anyway.
I'll tell you what, I will tweet out the top four here, because they're that good.
Nice.
Shouldn't take me long enough to get that tweet going. Best.
Xiaomi for you, Mr. Merritt.
Let's see.
Oh, Sunben. Nice. No. By the way, today at about this time, roughly, 14 years ago, I
Yeah.
sent an email to Eileen Rivera, the producer at ZDTV Radio, to say that the digital television party that I had invited her to earlier that day was still on if she wanted to come, but all of the other people I had invited weren't coming, so it would be just her, and it was cool if she thought that was too weird and didn't want to come.
Aww.
And
because the digital TV party I'd invited to her didn't exist until I invited her to it at the end of my radio shift at 11 a.m. that day, and I scrambled the rest of the day trying to get my friends to come over so it wouldn't be weird.
That's awesome.
And then she came over anyway.
My my meet-iversary, as in the first time I ever met Matt Flanagan, is coming up in a month.
Oh, nice.
July 31st.
I like that, meet-iversary.
The meet-iversary.
We'd known each other for more than a year at this point.
Right.
But she had
it took you
finally
a year?
started to give me the time of day. Didn't take me a year. I asked her on a couple of outings with friends, and she turned me down, like a brunch at a bonfire. And then finally...
Oh, man. Well, someday Matt Flanagan and I'll get on a podcast and tell the tortured history of how we first met, and that'll make you feel a lot better.
Okay, well, here's the actual, like, really uncomfortable part. So she comes over, like, knowing that there wouldn't be anybody else there, so that part was okay. She's a huge Sex and the City fan, and Sex and the City is on, like, in the middle, right, in the middle of its run. And HBO Signature on Friday nights always runs a marathon. So she's like, oh, there's some episodes I haven't seen because this is pre-DVR, right? Very few people have TiVos.
The swing, and then I will die laughing.
All I remember is that I had this little tiny table, which I actually still have. It's up there on the porch. I was sitting on one side, she was sitting on the other, and we're watching this just quiet, silent, like so uncomfortably weird.
Yeah. Well, my story about that is what's the best way I can tell the story. So I used to live in a room that was like maybe 175 square feet in bunk beds with a friend of mine. And one day his parents came over because they were in town to visit, and he wasn't there. So I just kept him busy, and I really wanted to watch Sex and the City because it was my favorite show. And I was watching it. It was fine. And then all of a sudden Samantha was on a swing, and I will say no more about that except that.
That's all you need to say if you know anything about that show.
Yeah. Sitting there watching it with Art and Judy and just like from Fresno and literally dying a horrible death on the top bunk.
Yeah.
It's just like, I will never do this again.
That is not a show you don't watch with other people lightly.
Yeah, no, you can't. It has a potential to go all the way downhill.
But then we went out to her friend's party in North Beach afterwards and just spent the rest of the night talking to each other. And then the following Tuesday, we went out and saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh.
And the rest is history.
This is history. That's awesome. The first time Matt saw me, I was making a cardboard R2-D2. Which really said everything you need to know about everything.
And he got little hearts in his eyes.
Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, that was our classic meet cute. Except we didn't meet. I was just observed.
Ah, I see.
He was busy. He was about to perform, and I was building props.
The first time I ever met Eileen was in January of 2000. So I guess we'd only known each other for about a year. When she took over for the previous CDTV radio producer, and I saw her through the window from the studio. She was in there. I was like, is that the new producer? And I was terribly intimidated. Her. No, I was like, I'm afraid of her because she's. Yeah.
Oh my God. Crouching merit, hidden motive.
Sunbun, if that date needed a title, that would be the title. Actually, by the time we saw Crouching Tiger, I don't think the motives were needing to be hidden in any way.
That's awesome.
God, I remember sending that email though and just being like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Why did I say I was having a party when I'm not having a party? And of course everybody's like, oh, I would, but I can't. I've already got these other plans.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I've blown it. I've totally blown it.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of those too. I'm real good at thinking about parties and terrible at making them happen.
Well, the other thing that so when we were done watching the show, she invited me. She's like, well, I'm going to my friend's party in North Beach. Do you want to come? I was like, no. Because stupid me is like, she's not serious. She didn't really want me to come. And so then she asked me again, are you sure you don't want to come? And I'm like, oh, get it through your thick skull. She actually wants you to come.
Right. To walk out the door and go to the party.
Yeah. So like, yes, I will go to the party.
Mm-hmm.
14 years ago.
Wow, that's impressive.
So then we went and we called our coach and four around. San Francisco was only a town of 4,000 people at the time.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to figure out how long ago it was. 2014. No, 2015. 2015 minus, I guess it was 1996? 19 years ago next month? Oh my God.
I know, right?
No, 18 or 19 years ago. Whew. Wow. Let's see.
And she still hasn't caught on and
Let's
gotten rid of me. Thank goodness.
see.
Still fooling her 14 years later.
We went to Disneyland last night to see all their awesome Christmas stuff, and it was pretty epic.
I love that. I love that you're just like, oh, we just went to Disneyland.
Yeah, well, it was literally like a highly organized event in which it was the only last possible second we could all go until like things just went Christmas bonkers. And it is stunningly awesome at Christmas, I will say. Except it is also stunningly crowded. Like there was a point in which there were like 4 strollers all converging on my location at once, and I was like, I am going to get crushed by babies. So I'm really glad when that didn't happen. But it was nice.
Crushed by babies, the Jenny Josephson story.
Yep. Yep.
I am out of the post.
Oh, wait. Please allow me to go in the post.
You may. Please do. Okay. Stopping the video. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will be back. We will be back tomorrow. Goodbye.